what the hell do we need as humans to survive? What do we need, you know? We certainly aren't going from capitalism at the moment, where there's such disparity of wealth. The 99% have very little of the wealth, and the 1% have all the wealth and all the power. So, what do we need? We need water, air, food. We need species that we live off, in the sense of growing vegetables. We need these things. What astounded me was, this is a big world global movement that we should be inspired by. 250,000 is the estimate of people in these eco-villages around the world. So they act in a way that they function. They've been around from 50 years ago, you know, some of these. They're human scaled, full featured. This is a sort of definition. A human scale, full featured settlement which integrates human activities harmlessly into the natural environment, supports healthy human development and can be continued to the indefinite future. That's the important point. Can be continued. Sustainability, important. So it was started by Robert and Diane Gilman by the Gaia Foundation. You might have heard of them. They're an educational, and actually they're a university that look at sustainability from the work on Gaia theory, and basically they looked at these communities and they formed the global eco-village network in 1994, so it's been going a long time. So what is an eco-village? Well, it can be 50 to 2,000 people, and some of the villages here I've got less numbers now. Particularly in this country, it's a bit of a funny picture. You've got in this country Findhorn, which is quite big, but you've also got very small communities like Lauriston Hall, or there's a CAT, where the Centre for Alternative Technology is a very small group there. And if you look on the web, you'll find that there are some very small, almost family units, you know, so it doesn't have to be huge, but they all follow these principles. So they've got an ecological or spiritual value system, usually, or a socialist value system. They're not all the same. This is what's brilliant, because they mimic nature itself, because they are very diverse, and nature's diverse. It's like Marxism came along and said one size fits all, but it didn't work. And capitalism comes along and says one size fits all, the market share, the market economy. But it doesn't. That's why we're here, to find alternatives. And this is a model. We're looking at a model here that could be repeated anywhere in the globe, and has been. So let's have a look at the economy first. If you look here, economics. You know, what the hell is it based on? Is there any reality? How do they survive? Well, the biggest one in the world is Oroville, which I visited in India, which started in 1969. And now you imagine this, like St. Paul's is inspiring, but in 1969, 35 different nationalities turned up at Oroville. 5,000 people turned up to start this community. And I have been there, it's very well organised, but it had a spiritual basis. It was formed under the guidance of Sri Aurobindo, a guru. And basically, his spiritual, the person who's followed him was called the Mother, Arissa, and she started it. She started it after Sri Aurobindo died. So, this Oroville is very interesting because it's a planned city, and they want it to be 50,000 people, but there's 2,000 at the moment. It's a large area encompassing an area near Pondicherry, near Madras, in that side of India. And it's not an easy landscape. It's quite dry in the agriculturally, but they've organised it into zones, and one of the zones is an industrial zone. So we say that we need an economy, so they have a green zone. So what we've got, you've got things that are to do with eco-villages. You've got business like eco-building, energy systems, and all this technical stuff. But we've got a lot of craft activities in Oroville. A lot of craft, particularly locals. Now you think, well, what sort of numbers of people involved? Well, there's not 5,000 people live in Oroville, but 5,000 of the locals in India are involved. And let me tell you how this benefits the local economy. Because if you've ever been to India, the thing that strikes you about India is bloody chaotic. There are two communities in India that are together. One is the Christians in Kerala, and the other is the Tibetans in Dharamsala and Karnataka. The rest of it is very chaotic. But what they did, they've done remarkable things, like they've reclaimed land. I went to the big green gathering when it existed, and they showed how over 25 years they redid the soil by permaculture. They built it up again. So now they've got woods growing where there was gully erosion, and they produce a local economy for the people. And this is really, really good for India, you know. So it's been very beneficial. Well, let's have a look at another community. There's Twin Oaks. Now this is very, very interesting because it's quite large, as you can see. 450 acres of farmland, forest in Virginia. Now, it's completely socialist in Twin Oaks. They don't have any spiritual thing at all. And we'll go into that later. It's completely socialist. They share everything. And what they do, they produce hammocks and furniture in a factory. And everybody works 44 hours a week. But even a third of their population are involved in self-sufficiency. So you've got indexing books, making tofu. They all do the same time. And they all share everything. They've got cars and things like that, but they're all communally shared. Nobody owns anything. Now, another one that we can look at as far as the economy is the farm. We have here Twin Oaks, the farm, 300 members, 450 hectares. Now this is interesting because this is one of the first hippie communes that ever came about, based on a guy called Saint Stephen. He was a spiritual leader, and they just literally, they're in San Francisco one minute, and they said, well, let's go around the country and start a commune, you know, they did. And they went over to Tennessee, and this is a very interesting eco-community because it had a very, very tumultuous background. And this is something else. You've got to set the limits of who you're going to support. You can't have freeloaders coming into the community and just, oh, I'll live there for a bit, you know. What happened to them is they got stuffed with people. There were 1,000 people living off this land, and it couldn't survive. They couldn't survive. So they actually had to downsize to 300. But they have an industry on, what they've done is got an eco centre, so they do training in self-sufficiency, eco skills. They also make tofu, and they've got a book business, which is a common theme in eco villages, producing their own publications. So it uses all the resources. And what is amazing is a little community like that, when the Guatemala earthquake happened, they went and they formed an organisation called Plenty, and they went and fed these people in the Guatemala earthquake using their food, which was amazing. They were producing a lot of food on the land. They took tofu. They set up clinics, you know. They helped outreach, again, like Oroville outreaching. That's another aspect of eco-villages you must remember, is that they're not just inward looking, like St. Paul's. They're not just, oh, we have our little community. Like I'm here today, I'm coming outside and giving a talk. Now, if you think that is fascinating, we have Damanhur, which is down here. Damanhur is in northern Italy. You might not have heard of it, but this is an amazing place, which has got 800 members, and it has its own currency, has its own schools, has its own flag, has its own newspaper, has its own constitution. So they have lots of little settlements So eco-village, you might think, oh, there's one big eco-village, but actually some of them are spread out into different communities, and that's what Damahur is like. And Damahur is interesting because it was started around spiritual leader, and it's a sort of very strange pagan type Christian religion that they follow. It's very hard to describe, but in economically what they've done, they've got a range, and this is another aspect of eco-villages. There's diversity in everything. They don't just do food, or they don't just do, some do, but not many. So they've got wines, cheeses, crafts, jewellery, hand-woven shawls. They've got therapists, so people might go from parts of Italy for a therapy, a therapeutic break. So they've developed their own natural health care. So what they've used is the local resources in their area to support their economy. So, and I want to point out that this is a global movement. I don't know whether Gaviotis is there or is it on the other side. Yeah.